Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy. I'm one of the co-founders of Rest. Thank you for joining our Art of Sleep webinar tonight. We have an expert session led by Dr. Whitney Roban, who will be sharing the importance of sleep and the practical solutions to help us get higher quality sleep. After Dr. Roban's presentation, we will be answering questions that were submitted during the registration for this webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few words. So when we first started Rest around 4 years ago, we were going through COVID. And at that time, everyone was sacrificing to keep ourselves and the people around us safe. We were sacrificing our routines, our time with friends and family, and many of our comforts. And one of the things that we were sacrificing most was our sleep. And as a society, we were already facing a sleep deprivation epidemic, and COVID made it worse. For myself and the team, we wanted to do our part to ensure everyone gets a good rest. So through our products and activities like this webinar, we hope to make a positive impact on society. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being a part of the Rest community and for helping us build this platform so we can help more people get higher quality sleep. And I don't know anyone else who has committed more time and their life to helping people get more sleep and higher quality sleep than Dr. Roban. So it's a true pleasure to introduce Dr. Whitney Roban tonight. As a clinical psychologist and a leading voice in sleep wellness, Dr. Roban's insights have been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and we are incredibly excited to learn from her tonight in The Art of Sleep, Habits, Health, and Better Rest with Dr. Roban. Dr. Roban, welcome.
Thank you so much, Andy. I'm so excited to be here, to be speaking about my favorite topic, sleep, with the whole Rest community. So as Andy said, I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm actually trained as a cognitive behavioral psychologist, and I've been working in the field of sleep for the past 20 years. And when I first got into the field of sleep, people kind of wore their sleep deprivation as a badge of honor. People would actually brag about how little sleep they got. And the prevailing thought back then was, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Fast forward 20 years, I'm so proud to say in my own professional sleep journey that the world has finally woken up to the importance of sleep. And now the prevailing thought went from I'll sleep when I'm dead to I better sleep so I don't end up dead. And that's kind of how I summarize how I've witnessed the field of sleep changing. Now, when I do these workshops, I know that most of you are here for the hows. I talk about the whys of sleep and the hows of sleep, and everybody wants to know the hows. And I promise you, I will get there. We got a lot of questions sent to us before the webinar that we're going to answer, but I don't want to skip. For those of you who still have the prevailing thought of I'll sleep when I'm dead, I don't want to skip the whys. So we're going to talk now about why. Next slide, please. Why is sleep so important? Basically, sleep is a basic biological need. We all need to do three things. We need to eat, sleep, and breathe. Nobody on this planet could live without those three health pillars. Sleep is the third pillar of health, along with diet and exercise. Now, when I talk about this trifecta of wellness, being sleep, diet, and exercise, I actually consider sleep the pinnacle or the foundation of wellness because it affects everything else we do in a 24-hour given day. For those of you maybe who don't think sleep is so important, I know that all of us, or some people even argue with me and they say, oh, I can get by on 4 hours of sleep, no problem, it doesn't affect me at all. There's a very, very small percentage, 1% of the population that are deemed short sleepers. That means 99% of us do need the required amount of sleep. So what I tell people is, if you want to argue about wellness, think about healthy food. We all try to do it every single day to eat healthy, but we don't succeed. Same with sleep. Every day we're going to try to get healthy sleep. It's not going to happen every day. Even as a sleep expert, there are some nights I don't sleep great, but you want to try every day to make sure you have a plan for healthy sleep. Next slide, please. So is sleep a priority in your life? There's something I talk about called a priority hierarchy. It's really a list of all the things in your life that are most important to you and your family. And I'm wondering, is sleep a priority in your life? Next slide. So I've been doing these sleep workshops for 20 years. And the top 5 things that people tell me are the priorities for themselves and their family are their physical and emotional health. We want to be strong in mind and body. They want to be successful at home and at work if they have children at school. They want their families to consume healthy foods. Like I said before, most people don't argue about eating and having a healthy diet. They want to stay active and physically fit, and they want to manage their daily stress. And all those things are great priorities. However, if sleep is not on your priority hierarchy, there's a problem. Next slide, please. Getting a good night's sleep must be on this priority list. And why is that? Sleep affects everything we do, head to toe, from morning till night. So if you want to be successful in all those other priorities, like staying strong in mind and body, managing stress, all of those things are affected by a good night's sleep. So if it's not on your priority hierarchy, please put it on there. And if it already is, move it to the top. That way you and your family can be successful in everything you think is important in your lives. Next slide, please. So another question for everybody is, how do you feel during the day on a given day? Do you feel tired like every single day that you wake up? Distracted, you can't focus, you're frustrated, you have a low frustration tolerance, you're forgetful, you forget to do things, where things are, you're disorganized, you misplace things, you're unmotivated, you just don't want to get out of bed, you're sluggish throughout the day, or you're cranky and moody. If you feel a few, many, or all of these things on most days, there's a good chance that sleep deprivation has something to do with it. Next slide, please. My next question is probably the single biggest question I get from everybody. How much sleep do we need? Well, my question for you is, how much sleep do you get? And when I do this in person, I ask for a show of hands. How many people get under 5 hours of sleep? 5 to 6, 7 to 9, or more than 9, which always gets a bunch of laughs. So who gets more than 9 hours? Most hands usually go up in the 5 to 6 hour range. So probably a lot of you are at home right now shaking your head like, yeah, that's me. Next slide, please. How much sleep do we need? It's not 5 to 6 hours. It's 7 to 9 hours. So on average, we need about 8 hours of sleep. Now people say to me, well, Dr. Roban, that's a big range, 7, 8, or 9 hours. How do I know? And this is what I suggest you do. And I did this many, many years ago. Find a week that you don't have to set an alarm, maybe a week's vacation over the summer when you don't have to work, and try to go to sleep the same time every single night. And see after a week when your body wakes up naturally without an alarm. That way you'll know whether you function best as a 7, 8, or 9 hour sleeper. So I did this a long time ago. I am an 8 hour sleeper. I know I get my 8 hours. I feel great. 7 hours, I'm okay. I can still function. 9 hours, feeling great. Anything less than 7, I'm not going to have a great day. So that's my suggestion for you. That way you know whether you're a 7, 8, or 9 hour sleeper. And again, what I said, 99% of us fall somewhere within this range. Next slide, please. The reason I'm including this sleep deprivation in the workplace, not only because we're doing a webinar with a wonderful company such as Rest, but I think these are statistics that aren't really talked much about. 50% of workers report getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night. So that means half of us are sleeping less than the required amount of sleep. Talking in dollars and cents. $411 billion is the annual cost due to sleep deprivation within the US economy. That's how much sleep affects corporations and money and bottom lines. 10 million hours are the working hours lost due to sleep-related work absences. So when you're sleep deprived, as I'm going to talk a little bit later, you're going to feel physically sick, after chronic sleep deprivation, probably not mentally healthy, and those are reasons why people have to miss work and call in sick. And Cost to the average worker annually from lost productivity is $2,280. Sleep deprivation has such an effect on productivity. So overall, sleep loss affects companies' bottom lines of productivity, healthcare costs, and safety, which is really critical. Next slide, please. But, however, this is probably my most favorite statistic. If workers increase their sleep by just 1 hour, that would increase their earning potential by 45% and improve the economy by $224 billion. Sleep has a very, very high cost. Next slide, please. So what are the negative effects of sleep deprivation? Why is it that it's so bad? It costs us so much. We feel so physically unhealthy, mentally unhealthy. I like to put this in the category of physical, emotional, and behavioral health. Okay, so let's think about it like that. Physically, we have a compromised immune system when we're sleep deprived. While we sleep, our body flushes out toxins, and we need to do that in order for our immune system to get stronger and not get sick, everything from the common cold to longer term illness. Unhealthy weight gain. Why is this? Two reasons. One, when we're tired, we look for outside sources of energy, foods that have fats and sugar in them. Second, there's two hunger hormones that are secreted while we sleep. The hunger hormone leptin, if anybody heard of this. This is the hunger hormone that tells us when we're full. When we're sleep deprived, we don't have enough leptin. We have more of something called ghrelin, which tells us to keep eating. So you combine unhealthy food with a lack of leptin, which tells us to stop eating, and hence weight gain. Third physical component of sleep deprivation, long-term serious illness, such as heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's, and cancer. There is research showing sleep deprivation increases the risks of all of these terrible diseases. So that's physical health. Mental health. Now, being that I'm a clinical psychologist, I will never skip over the mental health component of sleep deprivation. If somebody has a clinical anxiety disorder, they're diagnosed with clinical depression, sleep deprivation is going to make that worse. But even for people that do not have clinical forms of these mental health issues, there is nobody that wakes up the morning after a bad night of sleep and says, wow, I'm so happy, I feel great, I'm calm. Our hormones are balanced while we sleep, and we're going to feel more anxious, more depressed, have more mood disorders when we're not rested. And the last component is behavioral. So every behavior that we need to do to be successful at home, at work, for our children at school is affected by sleep. Our memory, remembering things we learned during the day, our ability to stay organized, to focus and pay attention, our judgment. I always say this is a big one for teenagers because they're notoriously have poor judgment and they're notoriously bad sleepers. So put that together, not great for their judgment. Problem-solving ability and productivity, as I mentioned before. So again, you look at this chart and you say there's literally nothing in a day that sleep deprivation does not have a negative effect on, but on the flip side, that good sleep can't make better. Next slide, please. So this is one of my favorite slides called While We Sleep. And this goes back to the whole I'll sleep when I'm dead theory. So much happens while we sleep. In fact, more happens while we sleep than while we're awake in the brain and body. So let's start with memory transfer. Everything you learn in a day goes into short-term memory and it gets transferred, consolidated into long-term memory while we sleep. Our immune system, as I just mentioned, it gets stronger while we sleep. Different hormones are secreted and regulated while we sleep. I talked about the hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin. The growth hormone is secreted while we sleep. Kids literally grow while they sleep. If any of you are parents, remember when you were kids that they complain of muscle aches when they're going to bed? That's because they're growing while they're sleeping. Muscles grow, our brain grows while we sleep. The sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, all regulated and controlled in sleep. and the stress hormone cortisol. One of the main things that most people agree upon is we just want to try to keep our stress levels down. Life is stressful. We want to try to keep our cortisol levels as low as possible, and that is controlled while we sleep. Muscle and cell repair, growth and recovery all happens during deep sleep, and energy restoration. That's when we regain our energy so we feel well rested the next day. During deep sleep, I call it the 4 R's that happen. That's rest, repair, recovery, and rejuvenation. So the deep sleep is the stage before REM sleep. It's one of the most important stages of sleep. And these 4 R's, these 4 things, rest, repair, recovery, and rejuvenation, all happen during deep sleep. Next slide, please. So some healthy habits for healthy sleep. Now that we've gotten to the whys, past the whys, and I hope that I've convinced you that sleep should be what I say is the single most important behavior you will engage in on a daily basis. I say that over and over again, the single most important behavior you will engage in on a daily basis. We got through the whys, and let's talk about hows. How do we do that? So morning routine. Everybody talks about your night routine, and that is super important. But our sleep-wake cycle, our circadian rhythm, is a 24-hour sleep-wake cycle, which means we have to focus on sleep-promoting behaviors from morning till night. It's not just about what we do right before bed. It's what we do from the second we wake up or open up our eyes in the morning until the time we close our eyes at night. What should you do in the morning? Get out of bed, drink a tall glass of water, get sunlight. That resets our circadian rhythm. Some fresh air, do some deep breathing, have a mantra, a meditation to start your day, and do a little exercise, either an intense workout or just get some walking in, a yoga class, whatever makes you feel ready to start the day. What should you avoid before bedtime? So you should try to avoid eating before bed. However, what I always say, especially when I talk to young teenagers and kids who are growing or athletes who are playing sports later into the evening, I never want you to go to bed hungry. So if you must eat before you go to sleep, there are sleep-promoting foods that I recommend, such as bananas, oatmeal, whole wheat crackers and cheese, turkey, avocado. For drinks, milk. Remember, your mom probably said drink a glass of milk or warm milk before you go to bed. Chamomile tea, tart cherry juice. These are all good snacks right before you go to bed in case you do need a snack. Avoid strenuous exercise before bed. For some people, they can do moderate exercise. For many people, just some sort of yoga stretches or maybe a walk when the sun is going down at night. Caffeine and alcohol. So people always say that I'm I'm a buzzkill for sleep because all the things that people enjoy doing right before bed, I'm telling you not to do. But caffeine actually has a longer half-life than you think. It stays in your system for a long time, around 6 or 7 hours for some people. So after lunch, you should cut out your caffeine. And alcohol. I know that a lot of people use alcohol as a sleep aid, and it is not a sleep aid. Yes, it is a depressant. It will make you fall asleep quicker. But after you metabolize alcohol, which might take 5, 6 hours, there's something called a rebound effect, which is going to wake you up out of your sleep once that alcohol is out of your system. So most people will say after a night of drinking that they think they had a really great sleep up until a certain time and then they were up. That's because alcohol prevents you from going into your deeper REM sleep later in the night, which is really important. So cutting out alcohol before bed and caffeine. And electronics, I mean, I mention it, everybody knows this, nobody listens to it, nobody does it, but it really is important. It's not just the blue light, which you've all heard. You can get blue light screens or blue light glasses, and there's controversy over whether there's even help or not. But do that, or put, your screens, the light in your screens down if you have to use them. But the main reason you should not be using electronics is more for the dopamine that it produces in your brain from those likes, from that scrolling, from TikTok and Instagram, and the rabbit hole we go through when you say, oh, I'm just going to go check out something that somebody posted, and it's an hour or two later, and you're still on social media. So that is another reason why electronics should just be turned off an hour before bed. Naps is a question I always get. I can't remember, Angie, you let me know if that's a question that somebody submitted to us for the Q&A. But naps are interesting. People say, are you pro nap? And I am, but there's certain rules for naps. And those are, if you have to nap, you should finish your naps before 3 p.m. and they should be 30 minutes or less. And I can get in later because I want to finish this beginning of the webinar into why specifically that is. But having said that, if you're very well rested, chances are you won't need to nap. If you're really feeling like you can't get through the day or something important later on that you really need to nap for, that's the parameters that you should follow. And last, an optimized sleep environment. Dark, quiet, and cool. Those are the three things you should make sure that your sleep sanctuary, your sleep oasis has shades on your windows, blackout shades, or wearing a sleep mask. Rest makes a great sleep mask. Um, Quiet. So if there's noise externally or within your house, getting a white noise machine, using a white noise app on like a Google Home or Amazon Alexa, or using earplugs is great. And cool, setting the room to a temperature between 60 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. People always go, what? No way. Trust me. Thousands of people have taken this advice from me, and everybody says the same thing. They sleep so much better in a cold room. Personally, I keep my house at 72 degrees during the day. I like it a little bit warmer, but at night, I turn down to 64 degrees, and I sleep great. If you cannot do that, if you don't have the ability to make it cool, that's okay too. You can use a fan, but what I have here and something I use sleep with every single day is the amazing Rest products, and they're cooling bedding. It is not only luxurious to the touch, but it is literally cool to the touch. I do not sleep without my Rest comforter and sheets. Next slide. So creating a sleep routine is really, really important. People always say, as adult, we need a routine, like they think that kids just need a sleep routine, but it actually really helps in letting your body and mind know that it's time for sleep. It's a signal. If you develop a brief and consistent sleep routine that you do every single night, your brain and body will automatically start to feel tired as you embark on this routine. I tell this little anecdote about my son, who's now 20, but when he was little, he'd be running around the house. You would never know that he was tired, but I knew as a sleep doctor that he needed to go to sleep. And the second I picked him up and we went into his bedroom and we started doing his routine of turning down the lights and closing the blinds, he immediately started yawning. It was like a Pavlovian response. That's because it's doing the same thing every night is a signal to the brain and body it's time to go to sleep. People always ask me, as a sleep expert, what is your sleep routine? I take a hot bath or shower at night. It is so relaxing for me. I journal my to-do list for the next day. I'm a person with sticky notes everywhere. I like to write it all out before I go to sleep. That calms my mind. Go into my bedroom. I like to spray lavender spray. I do my yoga stretches, do some deep breathing, and I go to sleep. Pretty simple, but I do this every single night. Next slide, please. Creating a consistent sleep schedule is also important. So there's routines, schedules, and environments. So we went through environments, we went through routines. Sleep schedules are so, so important. You need to have a set bedtime. People always laugh at me. My kids would laugh at me and say, you're the only mom that has a bedtime. I do. I have a bedtime goal of when I want to be in bed and a set wake up time. Now, another question people have asked me through the years is, well, what's more important, the time you go to sleep or the time you wake up? Believe it or not, it's the time you wake up. You want to consistently wake up the same time. We don't want to mess up our circadian rhythm, our 24-hour sleep cycle by sleeping in a lot on the weekends. What time should we set our bedtime and wake up time for? Well, remember I told you 7, 8, or 9 hour sleeper. Once you figure that out, you will know what time you need to wake up in the morning and work backwards. And that is your sleep goal every night to try to get into bed about the same time. It won't happen. You'll have a kid that keeps you up or a work deadline or a party or an event, and we have to live our lives. as often as you can. Creating a set bedtime and a set waking time and sticking to it are the best for healthy sleep. Next slide, please. So debunking sleep myths. This is a slide that I find is really important because there's a lot of misbeliefs out there about sleep. First one, alcohol, cannabis, and melatonin. Again, Dr. Roban being a buzzkill here. I talked about alcohol, it making you fall asleep easier, but not staying asleep. Kind of the same thing for cannabis or edibles or smoking weed. It might relax you and that might help you fall asleep. However, it does not prevent you from going into deep REM sleep, which is really a very important stage of sleep. The science also shows with cannabis use that regular habitual cannabis users actually report worse sleep than infrequent users. And also our body gets used to alcohol and cannabis if we're going to be doing it every night as a sleep aid, and we're just going to need more in order to feel the effects, which of course will not be healthy. Melatonin is probably another whole webinar in and of itself. As Andy talked about when rest started during COVID, that was also kind of the birth of the melatonin explosion in this country or all over the world. So melatonin, I think again, that's probably a Q&A and I'll save my whole assessment for then. But melatonin has been shown only to decrease the time it takes to fall asleep, or what we call the sleep latency, by 4 to 6 minutes. So none of these things are really great, very effective sleep aids. Sleep debt, can you catch up on sleep? I'm often asked that as well. If you're not regularly in severe sleep deprivation, sure, you could try to sleep in an hour and catch up, but think about it like this. Let's say you are an 8-hour sleeper and you figured that out, but every night for the work week, Monday to Friday, you got 7 hours of sleep. That's an hour sleep debt a night. By the weekend, you're in a 5-hour sleep debt. You are not going to be able to make up that 5 hours on the weekend, nor should you, because there's something called social jet lag. And when you mess up your sleep schedules where you're sleeping short during the week and then you try to catch it all up on the weekend, it's going to mess with your sleep-wake cycle, your circadian rhythm. On Monday, you're going to feel like you flew through time zones, something we call social jet lag. So sleep debt is actually very difficult to catch up on. Sleep as we age. People think that the older we get, the less sleep we need. That is actually not true. It's that as you get older and more mature in life, you actually need to go to sleep earlier, but you need the same amount of sleep. Your sleep schedule moves earlier. Sleep is a want versus a need. Again, we all want to sleep, but when I tell people some cognitive reframing that I do as a cognitive psychologist, is sleep is not just a want, it's a need. Remember that first slide, we need to eat, to sleep, and to breathe? All those things we need in order to function, be healthy in mind and body. So yes, it's a want, but it is also a need. And it is never too late to get healthy sleep. We sleep every day for the rest of our lives. So if that's something we have to do every day, it is always worth trying to get better at it no matter what age. Next slide. My top healthy bedtime habits. I'm going to go through these quickly because these are all things I've said before, except for the first one. 1 hour, my suggestion is 1 hour before bed when you're ready to start your full routine. Set an alarm, turn down the lights, put on relaxing music, turn off your phones, and start getting ready for your routine. No food before bed, no big spicy food, sleep promoting food. Sleep environment, dark, quiet, and cool. Have a brief, consistent, and relaxing bedtime routine, whatever feels good for you. It's you time. No technology, turn it off, charge it out of the room if you can. Independent sleep, not using things such as alcohol, cannabis, anything that is unhealthy for you. If there's not a medical reason, any kind of medical medicine for sleep is really a bad idea. Long-term use, early bedtime. To get that 7, 8, or 9 hours of sleep, depending on whether you're a 7, 8, or 9 hour sleeper, you actually need to go to bed early. So if you go to sleep every day at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and you need to get up at 7, you're never going to get the sleep you need. And a consistent sleep schedule. Trying to go to bed and wake up the same time every day. Next slide. Healthy habits really do lead to healthy sleep. It takes a while to change your habits and see change. It's worth putting in the effort. It won't become effort anymore once you do it and you start to see that your sleep is actually getting better. Next slide. Everyone can improve their sleep. Now, of course, if there's a medical reason you're not sleeping, if you have an illness or you're taking medication, that's going to cause sleep problems. Changing your daily habits might not make significant improvement, but it will make some sort of improvement. But anyone can get better at sleep. Some could be good sleepers, some could be great sleepers. It is never too late. Again, start accepting and prioritizing the importance of sleep. That is step number one. And these positive effects of healthy sleep will last a lifetime. Next slide. Thank you very much for joining me today for the webinar. And I'm very excited to get to your questions.